Hello, and welcome to our class in health psychology. My name is Dr. Suzanne Russ, and I am an associate professor of psychology here at Diné College. I've been here for 2 years now, or I should say this is the end of my second year. And I moved here in person up to a Hogan by campus in fall of 2021. And it's really nice to be here. I appreciate very much all the beauty around me. And I especially like being on campus and having at least a couple of my classes in person and meeting some of my students face to face. That's really lovely. I'm also really pleased to be able to meet my colleagues and to just feel like a part of the campus community. I still haven't, I don't think, gotten out as much as I would like to. We're still a little bit COVID hesitant, as you all know. And so I'm looking forward to gradually increasing my presence in the community and on campus as the semester progresses. I do have an office on campus. It is in the faculty office building FOB 106. I have not yet set it up, but next week I should be set up in there, and I'll publish my office hours at that time. It's going to be probably Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday afternoons, but I'll publish the specific hours. And I'm also trying to take a lead on advising. We're trying to get a handle to better support our students after we lost Tara Lamont Harvey as our advisor. So I should be able to help many of you in that way as well. So I'm a little late getting this orientation up for you. And that's because I read a really amazing book over the summer. Over last semester about grading. It was titled Grading for Equity. And it discussed how we have some silly ideas in grading, like we put students in a position to have to keep piling on points in order to get a certain grade. And the points are sometimes arbitrary and not related to what we're trying to teach in the course. And so as you see, when I go over the syllabus, I have worked to change the grading structure in all of my classes, which is probably I bit off more than I can chew, so I hope it goes well. But the idea is that you'll be graded on how well you understand the content. And so I'm seeking to give you a really clear idea of what you're expected to learn with each bit of content, and then to assess you on those things as a proportion of your grade, and assess you strictly on how well you met it. 4, you exceeded the expectation. 3, you were above average. 2, you met the expectation. 1, there's a little bit, you have a start on it, but you didn't quite meet it. And then 0, it's just not accessible. You haven't given me information that I can assess. And so that's how we'll run the course. And those 4, 3, 2, 1, 0 will be related directly to grades of A, B, C, D, F. So I hope this becomes more clear. And as we're going through, if things arise for you that don't feel clear, they may not yet be clear to me too, because this is new. And so I hope that you'll kindly ask me and we can talk about it together and see if we can get the situation figured out. So thanks for tuning in here. I'm going to start by orienting you to the course as it is set up right now. This stage of intermediary, pulling things up on multiple screens, is always such an interesting one. We all get to observe somebody's computer face as they do this. Okay, so you should be looking now at a view of our course page, and you'll see that it's not very exciting as yet. I can't do too much about this page. This is just it. And so when you come into our course, you're going to see this. And if I find a magical way to make it do something different, I'll let you know. So I'm showing this to you in my view. These same things are not available in your view because I don't have them finalized for you yet. But in essence, the most important part of our course page is not this main page. It is, in fact, this little page screen to the left, which when you pull up your computer, it's probably going to be hidden. And so you're going to need to jump over to this gray bar on the left screen. I hope you can see it, and click on this arrow that probably won't appear to you until you're over it, and then expand this, because this is where all the meaningful content for our course is. So here on our course, you'll find the readings, the email. I'm actually going to put a link to the syllabus up here too. And you'll find your calendar, your grades. And there is an assignments link that is not available to you yet. And I'll explain to you why that's not available to you shortly. So as far as what we're doing today in this orientation, I want to show you the syllabus and go over the course requirements and the kind of the exciting content that we're going to be covering in this course, and then show you how to navigate it. So going into our orientation link, you'll see this basic topic 1, welcome to health psychology. And if we enter it, here we have the things that we have for this week. So first off, we have the syllabus, and I will start there since it comes up first. So the syllabus, I have copied and pasted everything into here so that it's a little easier to navigate, but you can also print the syllabus down below. If you printed the one I sent earlier, you'll need to update it because I've changed it since then. So the basic information about our course is up here. This is simply location and times and the name of the course, but I had to include it somewhere. The instructor information is here, as well as content info, and the course description and objectives are here. I'll cover that a little bit differently since I'm talking to you. I'll do it through the topics we're going to cover and what I hope for you to achieve. Your required materials are a little different than for most classes. I think I'll put on the student preview here. This might make it, then you'll see it more in your view, which will make it a little bit easier. So going back in through this orientation and through the welcome page, we were looking at the reading materials. So we have books that are actually not textbooks. So these are really good books that you might want to keep. This book by Moss is Salt, Sugar, Fat. This is going to be useful to us as we understand why we crave certain foods and how marketers have taken advantage of this. You should find it fairly inexpensively. I think you could get a used copy for under $10. And, you know, I say use Kindle, use Audible, use whatever medium happens to work for you, and go ahead and dive into it. The second book, Why Zebras Don't Get Ulcers, is just excellent. It's by Robert Sapolsky, who's one of our lead researchers in stress. And you might think of stress as just being, momentary fleeting experiences when something kind of difficult happens, but he's really brilliant at leading us through the understanding of stress as it impacts our entire body. And so this is a really important book. The third book I just added to the class. I read it last summer, something like that. And it's called Why We Sleep, Unlocking the Power of Dreams. And it's more than this. This goes over the entire biopsychology of sleep. Dr. Walker is a professor at, I can't remember the university right now, but he's a sleep researcher. And this is really a nice firsthand walkthrough of sleep. And then also recently, I have been listening to this series that is not, I didn't do it in time to submit it for an official book, but I am really strongly recommending this. It is Sapolsky again, and you can get it in video. I have been listening to it in audio. I think the video might be more helpful if you're a student and less familiar with the content, but these are called the Great Courses, and he goes over everything that we'll be reading in this book, but he gives it in this synopsis in this beautiful 30-minute video. And so I'm really recommending it. I've contacted the library about the possibility of getting it through there. I even thought about, if I just had a few students in class, I'd even buy it for you. So I'm looking into how to give you access to this, and I'll let you know, because I think it'll really help you with your readings in Sapolsky. So do get all of these books secondhand if you can. I mean, it's a good way to save money, or get the digital format, Audible, whatever you think you need. Make sure you have your computer and internet. Make sure you allow yourself adequate time for this course. I think I'm going to jump ahead to the schedule and then come back to assignments and grading. So the content that we're going to cover in class is all here. This is always tentative. It's always subject to change. For example, another time when I taught this course, I had been reading a book all about breath, and I knew about the importance of breath to our overall health, but I hadn't ever found a way to package it and teach it. And when I read that book, I knew I really needed to include it. So I actually changed the syllabus so that I could get into this new content that I had just been reading about. This is one thing, is I love to read, and then I like to be able to share what I read in some way with students. It's beautiful work out there that I can share. So this is our kind of late week this is our orientation. So I didn't give you any assignments except to take the survey, but do watch this video and pay attention to it. So we start next week with healthy by just examining different lenses on what health is. And so we're talking, we'll be learning, I'll give you a little overview of it, actually separately. The readings are not from any of the assigned textbooks. They're all kind of separate, and you'll see them listed here. And there are assessment and reflection on Blackboard. Then we're going to go into stress. You'll see the names I gave each chapter or each unit are really kind of negative. Like they're always the thing we don't want. And I tried to play around with it and put the opposite word there, like mellow. But it just seemed to fit better. We're talking about the negative thing and hopefully giving a pathway to the positive thing. So here we have stress, and we'll start off with our Sapolsky work. Then we're going to start off our Matthew Walker and get into sleep and start reading that book. And there will be some videos. And again, these are subject to change, but I do have this material prepared for you. So I think I'm probably going to stay with it. Then we have our next topic, which I've named Happily Bloated. And this is the one where we'll start reading the Moss book. So we're going to start reading all three of these books right away, and then we'll be finishing them a little bit more on your schedule. So Bloated is about how we come to have our certain food preferences and how we're marketed, how marketers are kind of persuading us into things with this. We'll be watching a video instead of a lecture, Forks Over Knives, and there'll be a little mini lecture that I'll have on some of these key concepts. The next chapter is really about fitness, and I've named it Flabby. And we're going to be looking at just well-being, stress, high and low intensity exercise. And if I don't cover this content on homeostasis, allostasis, and diabetes in topic 5, I'm going to cover it in topic 6. And I'm just trying to balance out this content. And there is a relationship between these two, so they're pretty well linked. And when I say guest lecture, it's a guest video lecture, like it's some TED Talk or something that I found. But I often think that it's more interesting for students to hear from voices other than mine. People who have expertise in these fields, it's nice to hear from the source instead of from me. And we have the privilege of doing that in an online medium. Then is this chapter, this content on breath that we're going to get into and how important it is, something we never think about. And I've named it Winded. And then finally, at week 8, in an earlier version of the syllabus, I had a midterm, but I've taken that out. I think we'll do the assessments week by week. And this is volition. And this is, as you're reading through all of these chapters and studying this content, you may identify some things about you or about a loved one that could warrant change. And so this is really about volition, about how we facilitate change in a health behavior. It's very hard. It's not that easy. And so we'll look at the factors that lead to that. We do have a firm deadline here. I have to turn in midterm grades on March 7th. And so all of your assignments, anything is going to be due on March 2nd. So next we're going to get into Traumatized. And this is looking at collective stress and historical trauma, and as well as individual stressors that an infant might experience. So we're going to cover all of this in this chapter through some readings and lecture content. Then we're going to get into pain. I've named the chapter Aching because we sometimes have chronic, we'll talk a bit about chronic pain and its relationship to stress. I don't have the readings and things specified here. We'll get into then Addicted as it relates to pain. Of course, you may be well aware that addiction to pain pills or pain medication has been a really big problem in our country. Then we're going to get into sick. You might think this is all about COVID, but it's actually more about the immune system and autoimmune conditions. And finally, victimized. And depending on what students I'm teaching, this content changes. Sometimes it's a focus on healthcare and access to healthcare. And in here, I've had it a little bit switched out to talk about things like the uranium mining that impacted the water that we drink, or, oh gosh, what else do I have in here? The vulnerability of disease. I put some specific content in here that might be more relevant to the Navajo people. And so I don't have it right in the top of my head at this moment. You'll see a couple of red things in here, like submit your presentation topic, like your title and abstract is due. We have a week to prepare, finish things up, sign up for viewing presentations, and then we'll be actually viewing and commenting on presentations. And then we'll have a final exam. And this will be, I don't know what it'll be yet, but you will find out. And so that's the schedule that we're going to work with in here and the topics we're going to cover. And I will ask you at the end of the course if you have any other things that you would like to, that you think students in a health psych class might like to know about. Now let's jump back to assignments and grading. This is the new initiative that I've described to you. And so in a nutshell, what the main differences are going to be is this. All your assignments are going to be graded on a 4-point scale. So 4 means that you have exceeded expectations, like you've gone above and beyond what an undergraduate could be expected to do. 3 means you did great, you met expectations. In fact, you're even advanced. 2 means you're developing, it's kind of average. 1 is you're not quite there yet. And there is a 0 you'll see on some of the assignments. That means that I can't assess it. Like you provided an answer that didn't really answer the question, or you didn't give me any information to assess. And so I assume you know nothing. So this is how the grading is going to be on all assignments, big assignments and small assignments. And so, but then they're going to be weighted differently in terms of how they contribute to your grade. Now, one thing the author makes is he says it just doesn't make sense if you're testing to see what students know and a student turns in an assignment late, it doesn't make sense to deduct points on that assignment. And I agree with that. Like our goal is to help you learn. And if you can show that you've learned, then your grade should represent that. So there's not going to be that's not going to impact your grade. But as far as being late and other things like that, even though it doesn't impact your grade, it does impact your performance in our course. So you will hear from me if you're late, and I'm going to talk to you a little bit more about that shortly. Your final grade isn't going to be based on accumulating points, but it's going to be based on mostly 4s, 3s, 2s, or 1s, and then the proportional weight of those values. So for example, you might get a 3 on your presentation, and that would be weighted more than getting a 3 on a single objective within the course. And so we have these main things that you have to achieve, but some of them are weighted more heavily than others, and we'll see that below. And the grade book might seem, I'll do my best to make it look clear to you, but there's going to be a lot of different points because I'm assessing all these separate objectives in the course. And so it might look a little bit different than it usually does, kind of big. And so I'll make sure that you find a way to know how you're doing in the course. So in a nutshell, then, we're going to be taking quizzes. That's how I'm going to assess your understanding of the objectives. And usually they're going to be written questions. Some of these might be self-assessed or peer-assessed. And for the most part, you'll have the opportunity to rewrite. If you don't get a score that you like, I can give you an opportunity to rewrite, but you have to be able to tell me what you're going to do to actually learn the content. So if you made a mistake, you can't just do a retake. You have to let me know. This is why I did poorly, and this is how I need to improve. Reflections and check-ins. So reflections are at the first part of the semester, you'll be reflecting on your own health, your own stress level based on Sapolsky's work, your own sleep habits based on what we read in Walker. So we'll be starting that. You'll have a final project then. It'll be a presentation on one of 4 options that are on the syllabus. And then we'll have an exam that'll just kind of allow you to pull everything together and synthesize. And so the grading criteria then, you should all expect, if you're doing well, to be getting 3s on your assignments. That's what you should shoot for. Getting 4s would be unexpected, would be rare, because that would mean you're working above what an undergraduate should be expected to do. So you can keep that in mind as you're thinking about your work. So if you get mostly 4s, which would be rare, and especially if you're getting 4s on those heavily weighted assignments, like the final exam, then you are going to be getting an A. If you're getting mostly 3s, that would be excellent. You'll be pulling a B in the course. That's a very fine grade. You're working above average. If you're getting mostly 2s, you're getting a C. You're doing okay. You know, you're making it. You're not showing any kind of advanced understanding, but you're getting the gist. And if you get mostly 1s, that's going to be a D. It means you're just not there. You're just not demonstrating that you quite understand the things that well, maybe some hints at beginnings of understanding. And then the F is like this, not enough information. And I think that's the way this would play out in terms of grades. The final project options, it's all going to be a presentation, and you'll be watching your classmates' presentations and giving them very specific feedback. So we're going to have like a conference at the end. I like to call it that. And you're going to be making a video presentation on one of these 4 topics. And people will sign up to come and watch your presentation, and they'll give you very specific feedback. So the first option is an effort for a community health initiative. Like maybe as you're reading, you're thinking, you know, I am not getting enough exercise, and that's because, you know, the snow is melting, the ground is muddy, I can hardly go for a walk, there's no place except the road, and that's kind of dangerous. And how am I supposed to get exercise? There's no fitness in the region, that, you know, and so maybe you have an idea for a health initiative, and that would be excellent. And so then I will give you a framework, the things you need to cover in your health initiative, but you would then do about a 10-minute presentation about your initiative. Option 2 is a deeper look. You might just be wanting to learn more about something that we've just not touched on, or that we haven't touched on deeply enough. Some examples are here, but not a complete list. There are many areas. So for example, what is the relationship between psychology and heart or cardiovascular conditions? I'm not covering that directly, but it's relevant. I've learned about even the neurons in the heart being dynamic and long-lived and able to learn in the same way as the neurons in our brain. And I kind of wonder sometimes how we work to develop the neuronal connections in our heart. How do meditation, prayer, or other spiritual practices affect health? What psychological factors contribute to a peaceful transition through the dying process? When I've taught this course before, I've included a whole chapter on death and dying. Like it's something all of us walk into and all of us deal with as we lose those we love. And here at Dene College, people were uncomfortable with that. And we had a tight schedule anyhow, so it didn't matter that much to pull it out. But gosh, how better to think a little bit, maybe in my perspective, better to think about this process that all of us are going to go through and what it means and what facilitates a peaceful transition. And maybe that's an area that you'd like to go into and share with your classmates. And this relates also to grief and grieving, what psychological factors allow you to recover. Or childhood factors that contribute to resilience to trauma or stress. Some kid, you know, 2 kids in the same family, and maybe it was a difficult family, and they're both exposed to the same situation, and one of them is resilient and becomes a professor here at Dene College giving back, and the other one falters and falls into alcoholism and has a much more difficult life. Why? So that is maybe something you're interested in. Or maybe, you know, your mom or someone you love has developed an autoimmune condition, and we touched on it in here, but you want to learn more about it and you think the class might be interested. So that's the diving deeper. You might choose that. Navajo Health, this relates to going a little deeper into Navajo perspectives on health. So maybe you know someone who's like an elder or a medicine person in the Navajo tradition who would be willing to talk to you about this in a really systematic way. And here again, I'll give you a framework because we don't want frivolous presentations, but maybe this is an area that you have the expertise or access to be able to talk to us more about this. So we would always be discussing your idea. And then finally, at the end of our, just before the midterm, you're each going to be implementing you're going to be writing up a behavior change plan as an assignment, and like what you would do to change the behavior, health behavior of yourself or someone you love. And so what this would be is actually implementing it and sharing the results of your implementation, including the data that you've gathered. And so each of these would have really clear requirements, and you'd be making a choice on this around the time of the midterm, and then working on it in the second half of the semester to do a presentation at the end of the term. So that is what we have covered. And so I think we can move on from there. I have some additional information for you. These are just some of the basic policies related to the class. I apologize for this weird bullet. I had a hard time getting rid of all this text, so I don't know why it's there. I don't really speak in mathematical Greek. So I'm not sure what that is about, but those are just the basic facts about the class. One thing that's a little different from before is that if you are non-participatory and for several weeks you don't come into the course, I don't hear from you, I email you, you don't answer, I call you, you don't answer, I'm going to reserve the right to withdraw you from the class because it's not fair to me or to the others to just have your name on the roster, but you're not there, you're an invisible student. Okay. That is the syllabus and what we're going to cover. And a little bit here, tips for online success. Online classes are hard. It's hard to get motivated. You're alone. You're not talking to your fellow students after class. There's no like jokes that are happening that make the class period fun. All that stuff that kind of makes the richness of an in-person experience is absent in an online class. And so instead, you have to generate all that energy from within yourself. And so it's not easy. And so you need to really be kind to yourself in thinking about all of this. So I recommend these little tips that might be helpful to you. So if you treat your study like a job, like a job you like maybe, but you set aside time. And I'll talk more about that time. So give yourself a time. Like when you have to go to work, you know, you start at 8 and you work till 4 or whatever it is. Plan your study time like that too. You start at, at 1 and you work till 4 and that's what you do. Punch in, punch out. That can be helpful. You can even get little punch in, punch out apps on your computer if that's a helpful thing for you. And then manage your time well. So this is one of the biggest challenges I've had here at Dene is students turning in things late. And I don't know why. And so you really need to set up a calendar. I have a Google Calendar and I use it. I put things on it that I have to do, and I tell the calendar to send me a notification a certain time frame ahead of time so that I don't forget it. I like it. And then make a study plan based on the calendar. So if you know your presentation is due on a certain date, well, give yourself, say, okay, on 3 weeks before, I'm going to start this presentation. And so work on it systematically. Some of us tend to procrastinate. I am among them. And so I have to be really diligent if I want to feel competent and professional. And the flip side of that is I procrastinate and I work frantic up till the last minute. And the work, I think, usually comes out okay because I'm maybe lucky that way, but my stress level is skyrockets through the roof and my sleep is compromised and I can't contact with people I want to be in touch with. And so it's not healthy for me or for my relationships or for anything. So I'd say that's true for you. Procrastinating increases stress. So try to avoid it by managing time well and being your own firm boss. Find a quiet space and eliminate distractions. What do you need in order to study? What do you know about yourself? I know about myself that if I, at my age, this wasn't always true of me, but at my age now, if I have any deep reading to do, it's not going to happen at night. I am going to fall asleep. And so now if I have deep reading to do, I need to do it in the morning with a cup of tea. And I know this about myself. I know that I actually do really well studying. It's a lifelong habit of doing my schoolwork after my kids were in bed. And I was a teacher for a long, long time of children. And then, of course, I got my doctorate, and that was a lot of work. And all of that work I did after my kids were asleep. It was like I took every day family time, walk the dogs and talk to the kids, from eat dinner, clean up, do a nice bedtime routine. All that time in the evening, 5 to 9 or something like that, was all devoted strictly to family. But then at 9, I had to start work. And so I would usually work 9 to midnight. And I still am pretty comfortable in that modality. I kind of like working those hours because I feel like no one can interrupt me and I can have really concentrated time. So it works for me if I'm typing. I can't read in those hours, but I can do active work in those hours. And so know yourself. My daughter needs a study corral like this. She needs every distraction blocked out. My son sometimes needs that, but sometimes he needs to be like in a coffee shop or in a library where there's other people around also studying. All right, be mentally engaged. Sitting in front of your computer and staring at your book is not studying. And so you have to take that mind that wants to go wander in every direction and tell it, no, right now, this is what we're doing. And you have to do that again and again and again. You have to be engaged with your study. If you're watching a lecture and your mind is floating away, then do something to make yourself more engaged. Take notes by hand. Try and write down in your own words everything the professor is saying. It's going to be the best way to learn. Be active. So look at yourself, observe yourself. Am I paying attention, or am I frittering away? This is a really good skill to develop. Make your study enjoyable. When you set aside that time where you're going to clock in and study, well, do you have a favorite tea? Something like that, or a favorite hot cocoa, or like a, maybe you really like a bowl of carrots with peanut butter. I don't know, whatever it is, don't let yourself have that thing until you're sitting and studying. And then you'll develop a positive association with your study time. Connect with others. In this class, we're all so alone and everyone hesitates to reach out. What if I say something stupid, or what if nobody answers? And take your chances. There's a conversations blog on the left menu, and you can jump into that and post anything you want to. But like, you're going to be reading in Moss, and hopefully you'll get kind of disgruntled at the way marketers have taken advantage of what psychology has taught them. And if you're feeling that way, well, write something about it in there. Maybe someone will write you back. It's not graded. It's just a connection. Think about that. There's only 10 of these, don't worry, 10 of these points. Take breaks. And so you have allocated yourself that study time, and allocate yourself breaks. And when you take your break, say your 10-minute break, do not sit at your computer and do more screen time. Get up, move your body, stretch, get outside and get some fresh air, breathe some different air, something, but get away from your screen, because that'll be a real break. For me, I sometimes have to set a goal and not let myself have the break until I meet that goal. Like, even if it's going to the bathroom, I sometimes say, nope, you're not going to the bathroom until you get this done. So it's how I have to manage myself sometimes. Stay healthy. You'll read a lot in Sapolsky about when you're feeling unhealthy, you're going to get a craving for those carbohydrates. And the carbohydrates are going to weigh you down and make you tired. And that's not going to benefit your focus. So staying healthy involves a few different things. Getting enough sleep. We'll learn that in Walker. And so don't sacrifice your sleep. Exercise. Sometimes when you're feeling really tired and foggy, and you feel like you just want to sludge out somewhere, sometimes if you do the reverse of that and you exercise briskly and get the blood flowing to your brain, that helps. Beethoven used to stand on his head to get the blood flowing to his brain. And I know about that because it's something we do in our yoga practice, and it's a helpful thing. And so when you feel like you're sludging out, see if you can reverse that by doing healthy things. And then, of course, your diet. And so if you fill yourself up with carbs while you're trying to study, you're going to feel bloated, and carbs are not going to facilitate your increased brain function. So think about those things like the bowl of carrots, or nuts can fill you up a lot too, but they're healthier than just flat out carbs. Not quick sugars, don't overdo the caffeine. Caffeine helps to a point. Caffeine can help your study, but if you continue with the caffeine, it's actually likely to take you back down and slow you down again. So limit what you're doing in terms of caffeine, and definitely don't go the route of fast sugars like a Coca-Cola. I mean, it can give you a momentary surge in energy, but all that sugar in your bloodstream, as we'll learn, will have terrible effects for potential diabetes. And in the end, it's like a quick high that drops off. You're in charge of your body. Ask questions. I love questions. That's like my favorite thing ever. I don't like questions. I have to answer them, I know, but I never like the ones that are like, when is this due? I'm not very good with dates, but I love questions that are like, I can't believe Moss said this and it didn't even make sense to me. What, can you talk about this a little more? And I love those questions. And those are the students that I know are going places when they're thinking that much. And then this last thing is just, again, watch those deadlines. I did miss something when I went over the syllabus. Let me jump back. It should be on here. Actually, I think I didn't put it on here as a separate item. So let me go to the printable syllabus and talk a moment about late work. So is this the right thing that I'm looking at here? No, this is not. Let me get up our syllabus, which would be even more helpful to you in our class. So late work, you're not going to be penalized. But you can't turn in late work after the midterm. I mean, there's certain things I have no control over. But I'll tell you what, if I am grading and there's an assignment that's due and it's, say, written out answers to a question, and I have to grade 20 of these, and you decide, oh, I'm going to be late. So then I have all of them that came in, and I get kind of faster at grading them, because once I start to get familiar with what students are saying, and I get faster at it, and I give more thorough responses because I'm in that mode. My thinking is there. And so I get better responses to you, and it's much easier for me. But those late assignments that just trickle in, those are so incredibly hard, because I have to go all the way back and think, okay, what am I looking for in this question? What are the criteria? I have to prepare myself for this grading all over again. I have to do it every time someone has a piece of late work. And so it's inconsiderate. It's inconsiderate and a little disrespectful to your instructors to turn in your work late. So turn in your work on time. It's helpful. It's helpful to you. It's really helpful to me. That's what I'll say. Okay, and I think we might be about to the end of this orientation. And so you have this one survey to take and submit, and this I'm doing in lieu of those introductions that we do, but I will be having you do a little bit of an introduction when you make your presentation so that people know who you are. Since we don't have discussions, I didn't see as big a role for those other kinds of introductions. So you'll be introducing yourself to me via the survey. And you'll be taking a screenshot and submitting the screenshot of the assignment. Now, you'll notice when I showed you the other view that I had an assignments link here, and I don't have this here for you. And the reason I don't have it here for you is because your assignments are going to be linked to content. And so there's something that in my view is called adaptive release. And it means you won't be able to see the quiz until you've looked at the content. And so if I just put everything in the assignments box, who's going to come down here and look at the things you have to learn that I've worked all these hours to prepare for you? You're going to just try out the assignment. Hey, maybe I'll do it, but no, I don't want that. So I want you to go here to this content on the menu and look at what week we're in. And I guess I better put some dates on here. I mean, it's all in the syllabus. That's how we used to do it, just looking at the syllabus. But these correspond with the weeks of the course, week 1, week 2, week 3, and so forth. And so, start here. So when you look at healthy, for example, you'll see this is it. Okay, this is the overview. I actually think I'm going to link the lecture right in here. I have an overview lecture that I'm going to prepare for you right after this. Then your readings are here. And then here's all this stuff that I kind of fixed up for you. Here's the lecture that I made for you and the reading and this little video on germ theory. And then I put all these slides up here for you so that you can see them a little better. And then you can see here's Eastern perspectives. And so I prepared this content for you. I took the time to lay out what questions you should think about and things like this. And then the same for Ayurvedic medicine. And then I put up these different readings and videos that you should watch. So I've taken some time to prepare for you. And so when I'm doing all that, I don't want you to just say, okay, what's the assessment? I don't need the learning. So when you go into assessments, you'll see that I'm actually assessing each objective. This is just one question. This is just one question. I guess I'm calling it a quiz. So there's 4 questions you have to answer, but they're adaptive. Like you can't look at this until you've looked at the content. So hopefully, I hope it's all clear to you. And then you have a reflection to do. So I might open up this link, but you should know that it's going to be adaptively released. You won't be able to get to the assignment until you do the work, until you do the studying. So with that, I think this is the end of the orientation. I'm really pleased to be working with you. We have a large group. And as I have updates, I'll put them on this introductory video. That'll be right on the starting menu for each week's work. So thanks for being here. I'm looking forward to working with you this term.